You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, ep050. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Hello and welcome back to the Tricorder Transmissions. This week on the show, we're going to be talking patterns of force. I am Craig Cohen.
And I'm Jeff Hewlett. And this is a very significant episode for us, Craig. This is our 50th regular episode of the Tricorder Transmissions.
Wow, let's give ourselves a round of applause here, man.
Can you believe awesome. It's been that long? It's been almost a year. Actually, it's been almost a year since we've started releasing shows, but it's been a little over a year since we started our production of the episodes. So, wow, we've been doing this for a year.
That's great, man. It's been a great journey, and I'm so glad we've been able to take it.
Yeah, this has been a very awesome experience so far. Met some really great people, and I think we are getting geared up to meet even more great people in a little less than a week from now when we touch down in Las Vegas for the Star Trek convention.
Oh yeah. It's actually when as we're recording this, we are less than a week out.
Yep, we are less than a week out, so we are really looking forward to that. It's going to be cool. We're going to be releasing an episode while we're at the con, so keep an eye out. Our regular schedule will not be broken, so your regular listening can continue, and we're going to have some special episodes after the convention lined up. But since we're here doing our regular episode, there are a couple of news items. One I am particularly happy about, and that is the announcement of this year's Hallmark Christmas Trek ornaments.
Oh, I saw a screenshot of some of those.
Oh, there's one that I am looking forward to getting.
The end of the Wrath of Khan.
Yes, Spock's death scene from Wrath of Khan with Kirk and Spock touching hands through the glass.
Yeah.
That's going to be really, really awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I will be picking that up as soon as I can find one. I talked to some people. I was at the mall the other day here, my local mall, and there's a Hallmark store in there, and they said the new ornament should be in any week now, so they should be showing up in your local Hallmark store hopefully relatively soon.
Neat. And there's an Uhura one as well.
Yes, there is an Uhura to go along with some of the other standalone characters that have come out in the last couple of years. I think last year was Scotty, and this year is Uhura. And there's also a Enterprise 1701C from yesterday's Enterprise, Next Generation,
cool.
Yesterday's Enterprise. So that's another one. And I think that's about it. I thought there was going to be actually I thought there was going to be a few more, but I don't see them listed here. So maybe there'll be a couple more that'll show up at some point. But
yeah, I think the screenshot I had seen had 3.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I see here. But I thought I had heard rumors of some other ones being released, but perhaps they're future designs.
Yeah, and pretty soon you're going to have a tree dedicated just for the Trek ornaments, in addition to your normal tree.
Yes. I may get a little desk tree.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so I'll hang my ornaments on that, because I have the Gorn one here, and my shuttlecraft, and I'll be getting the Death of Spock one this year.
Awesome.
So initial reviews are rolling in for the George Takei biopic, To Be Takei.
Oh, cool! The documentary.
Yeah, the documentary. Yeah. It looks the initial the trailer looked good, and the initial reviews are looking really good. I am so looking forward to seeing this.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, me too.
I cannot wait. So there's a pretty cool trailer out there. I don't know if anybody's seen it. If you haven't, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's been released pretty recently. And it looks to be a very, very personal documentary.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So it's going to be really cool. And that's funny because this week we got a clip from the Bill Maher show with Takei talking a little bit about why he and Shatner have had this feud.
Yeah.
For many years. And it's pretty much what you would have expected. Takei says that Shatner's a kind of a selfish guy, and we've heard that rumor before, and I'm sure there's some truth to it. But, of course, Shatner has already given a retort to that I saw, and it was in the form of criticizing. There's a new Facebook app out that I'm not too familiar with, but it's apparently a Facebook. It's called Facebook Mentions, I believe, and it's dedicated to people who are, and it's only really for people who are famous, who want to talk to and monitor other famous people on Facebook. And Shatner was quoted as saying the first person he was presented with in this app was George Takei, and then he kind of rolled his eyes. So the feud is alive and well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, not awesome, but awesome.
Yeah, you would have hoped that they would have this all done by now, but and in other news, we don't usually do much product news, but I know some people who listen to the show and friends that we have are collectors of the Funko miniature figures, the pop figures, things like that. So there are some new ones available. There is a new figurine that doesn't look like a regular pop figure. It's more of a almost like an animated looking character, and it is the Amok Time Spock with the purple sash and the Lurpa weapon. Actually looks pretty cool. It's a little strange looking because he doesn't actually have eyes. He kind of just has white blobs where his eyes would be. So that's a little bit on the weird side.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you also have a new actual pop-like figure. It looks like the regular pop figures, and it is the Mirror Universe Spock.
Ah.
Yeah. So if you're into collecting those, the new ones are out. I've actually had some trouble locating the original series Trek pop figures. I haven't seen them in person yet, and I've gone around to the places that I know that carry them in my area, and I have not yet seen them.
Yeah, they're probably they probably move off the shelf quicker than some of the other ones.
You know, Amazon has them, so if I really wanted them, I'm not really hot on these things, so you know, I wasn't in that desperate of a mode to get them. I figured if I happened to come across one in a store, maybe I'd pick it up if I liked it, but
yeah,
sight unseen, I am not that compelled to pick them up. But I know that a lot of people out there like them, so worthwhile to know what's around.
Totally.
All right, are you ready to talk Patterns of Force?
Yep, I am.
He is. All right, original episode aired February 16th of 68, and remaster was May 19th of 2007.
And from the NBC press release issued on January 19th, 1968, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock are captured on a warlike planet with the Nazi-type regimen while searching for a cultural observer for whom nothing had been heard for 5 years in Patterns of Force on NBC Television Network's Star Trek Colorcast of Friday, February 16th.
All right, and our scene-specific commentary will start in 3, 2, 1.
The Enterprise has some moves.
Yeah, I love how they had that little Earth-like planet with the ring around it there.
Yeah.
That was different.
So this Stinger really just sort of gets right to it.
Yeah, they don't beat around the bush much, and you got that. I love how you have that picture of that guy on the view screen back there. Just kind of, you wonder what that is at first because they don't qualify what it is until you've seen it for a few seconds. So suddenly you have this just this guy's face.
Yeah, John Gill, and we're getting the backstory of why John Gill is important. Spock's got a history with him, and Kirk has a history. They both studied under him in Starfleet.
Well, he was Kirk's instructor at the academy back on Earth, and I guess he was pretty influential on Kirk. And Spock has read a lot of John Gill's writings and theories on history, and he likes the way that he presented. Spock likes the way that Gill presented history, and it wasn't a string of dates, more of cause and effect.
Yeah, that was. I was trying to think of the exact quote, but you pretty much paraphrased it much better than I was doing in my head.
Well, we've got another situation here as well with another ship coming in, but this is another case where there are two planets involved, and the technology that is inbound, the weapon that is inbound on this ship, is far beyond the capabilities of what either planet should have. So Kirk is going to assume that they've had some sort of an outside influence. We just saw something similar to this a couple of episodes back.
Yeah, it seems like they finally really got into the pre-Prime Directive, as it's called, non-interference directive. In the last couple of episodes, they've really started to drive that home.
Yeah, for sure, and they'll actually mention it again in this episode.
Yeah,
so we'll get another name drop.
Yeah, it plays pretty heavily.
Yeah, for sure. So it was a thermonuclear warhead, by the way, just to get that out there for anybody who's listening along. And it was on an unmanned little spaceship that was launched apparently to blow up or deter the Enterprise from approaching. So it's technology that they shouldn't have. And, Bones was a little concerned, and Spock didn't seem to have any answers. And they're assuming that this John Gill character has broken the Prime Directive.
Yeah.
And given these people this technology, or at least taught them how to build it, and they've kind of taken over in his stead. But there's been no communication from this guy, and they're assuming that he's dead at this point. But he may as well be also, or could be incapacitated, I suppose.
Yeah. So this is a pretty, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's a pretty shocking episode.
Yeah, definitely. At the time it came out, I would imagine World War II was still a pretty sensitive subject.
Yeah.
It wasn't that far in the past. It was still pretty significant memory for anybody who was an adult at that time.
Yeah. And from what I remember reading, prepping for this episode, this episode didn't air during the regular broadcast back in the 60s in West Germany.
Right. Yeah. It didn't come. I didn't think they saw it until sometime in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So it was kind of controversial at the time, but I think this is a great example again of Star Trek saying its piece about a controversial subject.
Yeah. So they're being injected with tracking devices.
Yeah, I love this.
Great idea. Why don't they do this every time they beam down?
I know. I had that written down as something that I wanted to bring up to you. Is this is the first time we've seen them take this kind of a precaution. And you wonder why they wouldn't have this as a standard procedure.
Yeah.
It looks like they have their City on the Edge of Forever clothes back on.
I was just going to say, it definitely looks like Spock dusted his off and put the cap on.
Yeah, Kirk's got some mom jeans going on.
So here we are beaming down to a back lot.
Yep. This is the Paramount Pictures back lot. And we'll actually see some buildings where Lucy and Desi ran the business.
Oh, awesome!
Some office buildings, and they were also used for locations in Assignment Earth and Bread and Circuses. So they've been used a couple of times.
And now here we're going to get the shocking reveal after a very violent kick.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw this, and they kind of hone right in on the swastika on the guy's uniform sleeve. They got the red bands on, and I think of the first time I saw this, I didn't know what to make of it. Actually, because I was pretty young at the time, and I don't think that I knew who the Nazis were at that point.
Yeah. And Kirk and Spock are instantly, confused by this, and Kirk spouts out that the possibility of an independent civilization on the other side of the galaxy developing an organization like the Nazis is beyond coincidence, or it's astronomical. The fact that they could develop in that manner.
Yes, and I absolutely love that they point that out in the episode, where in other episodes where they have similar things happen, where they have parallels to Earth societies or Earth's history on other planets, they kind of just gloss over it. And this one, Kirk actually calls that out.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that I thought was a little bit weird about this, is this newsreel that's running here actually has footage of Adolf Hitler in it.
Wow.
He's riding in a car. I was wondering to myself, how would they have newsreels of actual Nazi Germany? There he is, going by. How would they have these newsreels on this planet? Where did they come from? And it's also mixed in with footage, black and white no less, footage filmed on that planet of those people in their uniforms.
Yeah, unless whoever or unless John Gill decided to travel with some his Time Life library of the history of World War II.
I guess so. And we just got the big reveal that we've been waiting for, and we find out that John Gill is the Fuhrer. So he is the Hitler of this society.
Mm-hmm. Which also blows Kirk and Spock's minds because it seems so far away from his philosophies.
Yeah, and to think, we heard he's a historian and he was a teacher at Starfleet Academy, so you have to wonder what would have happened to him or what changed in him to make him unleash this type of a society on these people. He broke the Prime Directive, but why would he choose the Nazi society as a model?
Yeah, and that's really the ticking time bomb of this episode, which is kind of neat. It's a mystery that's being unraveled, as opposed to a true countdown clock, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, and they leave you hanging until the very end, pretty much.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more pure suspenseful episodes, and we get an abundance of Spock nerve pinch. They must have thrown out the directive that Spock couldn't use the nerve pinch multiple times in an episode.
Yeah, that's been trashed already.
Yeah.
That's been trashed. And, another thing that's great about this episode is Kirk has a huge amount of costume changes.
Yeah.
He's got 4 different outfits on in this. Here's his third.
Yeah.
So Kirk is a higher rank here than Spock. And I love how quickly Kirk and Spock are able to assimilate themselves into this Nazi-like society. They're pretty convincing.
Yeah,
here.
But it's kind of neat how this guy is able to look at Spock and realize that there is something off.
Yeah, his skin tone is way off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what gives Spock away at this point, is that his face and his hands are exposed. Not his ears, they're covered by the helmet, but he looks so different than either of the Zeon or the Echoes or the Echosian people that it's enough to raise this guy's suspicion. Yeah. And he tells Spock he's got to take his helmet off. So the ruse didn't last long. No.
But I like how Kirk keeps it up until the last minute. There's no, he says, we're in a hurry. Let it, we don't have time to deal with, taking helmets off.
Yeah, and it's amazing he didn't whip out a phaser at this point and start stunning people. He let Spock take the helmet off and reveal, which in a way is interference, isn't it? Introducing an alien into, now that he's been exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this planet at least seems aware. The concept of aliens isn't,
I suppose so,
alien to them.
But they've never seen a Vulcan, though.
Yeah.
They've only seen other humanoids. But I think this is the only episode you see a shirtless Nimoy.
Yeah, and he's working a lot more hair than Shatner.
Yeah, and I guess they gave him that yellowish skin all throughout, which is nice. They kept consistent. So.
And you get the green lash marks, which is expected.
Yeah, but he seemed to take that pain pretty well. Like, it didn't seem to faze him at all. So I guess he can think the pain away. Yeah.
It seems like Spock's got a pretty high pain threshold.
Yeah, and I love how Kirk is joking here in the face of torture. He's just been obviously beaten the crap out of him. I mean, he's got like lash marks all over his shoulder, but he's still kind of goofing with this guy. And kind of almost laughing him off in a way.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to see the Fuhrer. I'm not going to give you any information, dude. But,
so this is the deputy Fuhrer.
Yes. He's kind of he's not the second in command, but he's a high ranking guy who's obviously outranks the torture captain here. Yeah.
And this dude through the whole episode, you're always waiting for something with him. You're waiting for a turn of some kind, and I guess it's the way the character was written and played. But you watch him and you just think that maybe at the last minute he's going to have a good guy turn or something.
Yeah, well, he kind of tips his hat a little bit here in this scene by overturning a general rule, which is after you interrogate a prisoner, you execute them immediately.
Yeah.
And he's going to turn over that rule, essentially overriding the Führer's rule, and say, no, we're going to lock them up, and we're going to let the pain set in on them, and then he'll come back and question them. So he gives them like an hour stay of execution.
Yeah.
And, you know, the other guys are kind of incredulous about it. But that's his order. And, okay, that guy's a major, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So the other guy outranks him by quite a bit. So I guess he just has to do what he says.
Yeah.
Pretty fascinating.
Mm-hmm. But it definitely seems like that's the right decision, because obviously Kirk and Spock are operating on a much different level than any other prisoners they've had before.
Oh, for sure. Well, and Spock also obviously not being of either planet. You know, I'm surprised they didn't want to take him to the Führer immediately.
Yeah.
Especially when they saw the green blood. I mean, wouldn't that be shocking to you?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So now they're in the cell with the guy who we saw get beat up earlier in the episode.
Yeah, he kind of looks like somebody out of West Side Story to me.
Yes, totally.
I expect them to break out into dance.
Yeah.
So, interesting side note, the Nazi uniforms that are used in this episode are all from Paramount's costume storage. So they were featured in a bunch of other World War II era films. So, and a lot of them featured some mismatched parts and, different rank identifying stuff. But the one we see McCoy wearing later will be correct, and it will identify him as a colonel, which Kirk requests.
Ah, cool.
So that's a pretty cool side note. Yeah. So we're getting a little bit of a backstory here too about the Zeon people, and it seems like there's two neighboring planets. I guess, you know, the Enterprise passed the outer planet on the way in, and then we saw the inner planet, where the Ecosians or the Nazis now live. And it seems that the Zeon people were more technologically advanced.
Yeah. So
this guy is claiming that they came over to Echos in order to, you know, help, you know, the Ecosian people build new technology and advance their science and their society. And now they've grown so powerful they've turned on them.
Yeah.
So they've been declared enemies of the state in a way, and they're being hunted down by the Nazi party. So paralleling, you know, in Star Trek terms, paralleling World War II in a way, but just with two different planets instead of two different religious views.
Yeah.
Interesting that they use all the same terminology that the Nazis use. You know, the SS and the Führer. They use all the same the same terminology and salutes and uniforms. So they mimic it exactly, just kind of like Piece of the Action was.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But instead of getting the the history of the mob book, they've gotten much more detailed stuff going on. So here now, Kirk and Spock are digging the tracking devices out of their arms, and it's funny, the other prisoner thinks they're trying to kill themselves.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of a strange sight to see Kirk rip a metal strap out of a bed frame and then cut his arm open with it, and then do the same to Spock.
Yeah.
You know, without even flinching at all.
Yeah. And I was going to say that it's kind of cool that you can watch this sequence today and appreciate the fact that they were able to get across the idea of what they were doing without really giving us a gruesome shot of, Kirk's arm being, sort of, gouged at.
Yes. I was thinking that myself, that they obviously had to avoid real gore. So they did the best they could and had them sort of turn their arms away from the camera so you really couldn't see the metal digging in. And then, you do see a little bit of a blemish on Kirk's arm when it's turned the proper way. See, there it is. But they did a really good job of that.
Yeah, it's good staging, and the director of this episode is a director we've seen before, Vincent McEvedy. He directed 6 episodes of the series. We last saw him directing Balance of Terror, and we'll next see him on The Omega Glory.
Very, very cool. I love how Shatner's actually doing this stunt, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool that they didn't find a way to use a stunt double for that.
Yeah.
So, Nimoy actually does climb up on his back there. I'm sure that shot of Nimoy standing in front of the light bulb, he was, standing on top of some sort of a, box or something. But
yeah,
I love how we actually have Shatner holding up a person on top of him. So pretty cool stuff. But very convenient that they just so happen to have those subcutaneous tracking devices with these crystals in it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that they could use this relatively low power light bulb to focus this beam of phaser-like energy and melt the lock off. So, wow, Shatner's got some bloody looking eyes there. And then the corners of his eyes look like they're pretty red.
Yeah. Well, he's putting a lot of stress. And he's doing such great facial expressions there.
There's a lot of great little comedy moments in this episode. And I wonder if they did that specifically to try to lighten the heaviness of the mood of having Nazis, on TV, torturing people, killing people. You wonder if they almost felt that the comic relief was a necessary addition.
Oh, very possible.
So there's quite a few comedic moments. We earlier on, Spock made a joke that Kirk would make a great Nazi. Haha. And, we've got this moment with Nimoy climbing on Shatner's back and Shatner being in pain. Little funny things there. And there's more of them even coming up, not far from now. So one thing I thought about, though, with them cutting their arms open, wouldn't they be subjected to maybe a case of space tetanus?
Yes.
Or something. I mean, you're cutting your arm open with an old, nasty metal bed part. Can't be healthy.
Yeah. So the guy with them is actor Richard Evans playing Isaac, and he appeared on Gunsmoke multiple times, The Rifleman, and he also guested on a Jeffrey Hunter series called Temple Houston.
Oh, cool.
So that's pretty neat. And he was also on The Lieutenant, which was another one of the shows that Gene Roddenberry worked on before Star Trek.
Ah, all right. Do you see how smooth Kirk was there?
Oh, yeah.
He bumped into that guard and swiped the keys off of his belt. How I didn't know Kirk was a pickpocket.
Yeah.
It's another one of Kirk's superpowers for a change.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So Kirk is in yet again another costume. So this is his his 4th costume. So he had his original uniform on. Then he had the City on the Edge of Forever clothes on. Then he had the black uniform with the red band, and now he's got the gray uniform.
Yeah.
So lots of costume changes for Shatner this time around.
Guard notices his keys are missing.
Oh yeah. So back he goes. So they don't find their phasers. They've been taken care of. They've been taken somewhere else. And, I don't think they ever actually recover them.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it. But they've recovered the pieces of the disassembled communicators, and Spock he's estimating that he may be able to get one working, one together, and he's kind of messing around with the parts here.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, the genius of Spock is going to help save the day. Poor guy still doesn't have a shirt, though.
Yeah.
He's got the communicators, but no shirt. So fortunately, another uniform to steal.
Yeah. And Spock is stressing the importance of the communicators because he says without them, we can't communicate with the ship. And there's no way we're going to be able to overcome the might of an entire planet's military.
No. I love how the sign on the door outside the Nazi headquarters said service entrance. I wonder if that was actually a sign on the wall outside on that building, or they put that there for the show.
It definitely seems like it's possible.
Because it could have been a service entrance.
So now we've found our way to the the underground.
Yes, and these tunnels actually happen to be the same tunnels that were used in The Devil in the Dark.
I was just going to say, they look like a horde burrowed through them.
Yep, they are one and the same.
Awesome.
So I love when the sets are reused. So now we're finding out that there's some sort of an underground resistance movement, and Isaac has led Kirk and Spock in their Nazi uniforms into this underground rebel camp. And of course they're distrusting of Kirk and Spock because they're wearing those uniforms and they're strangers. But wouldn't you think this would be a perfect opportunity to Spock to whip that helmet off again?
Yeah.
And to say, hey, check this out. Obviously, I'm not an Ecosian.
Yeah.
At this point. I am somebody else. But he doesn't do that. Not now, anyway. So the ears come out in a few minutes, but... So this episode was actually quite controversial back in the day. So it like we said, it didn't get shown in Germany until 2011. And supposedly a lot of former Nazis were still alive, of course, in the 1970s. So it made sense that they didn't show it. You know?
Yeah.
And it did get shown in other countries. So Australia had broadcast it. And of course it was shown here, but I guess it was getting around that time where, you know, it was at least getting somewhat more acceptable to depict Nazis on television, I suppose. I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of documentaries and things that were being made, and war films and whatnot, but I can't imagine this episode went over well with everybody who watched it back then. I'm sure some people's parents or older people had seen this on the television were appalled by it.
Oh, totally. And if you look back at all the different episodes of the series, and how they sort of masked the issues they were dealing with, or the showing parallels between the current events, this episode really has to be sort of the most on the nose, huh?
Yeah, this one kind of does smack you right in the face, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other ones have there's some that are pretty obvious but still have some subtleties to them. This one pretty much comes right out and beats you over the head with the concept just all throughout the entire episode.
Yeah. So now we've got this double cross.
Yeah, this is a great scene, by the way.
It really is.
They pulled this off so well. In fact, when I watched this the other day to write up my notes for this episode, I almost forgot this was a double cross until right near the end.
Same here.
Yeah. So
and look at the guy that looks like Meathead there.
Yeah.
Behind her.
He does kind of look like Meathead, doesn't he? Yeah, he does kind of look like a poor man's Rob Reiner. Good eye.
Oh, goodness. As a poor man just gets shot in the gut, we're making Rob Reiner jokes.
That was a great fade out, too, by the way, for the commercial break, because you don't know that it's a setup yet.
Yeah.
You just think that the leader of the resistance there in that little pocket just got blown away by a hero of the Nazi party.
Yeah.
And there he's still alive.
Yep. So now we learn that this was just a clever ruse to really test them and make sure that they weren't triple agents?
Yeah, triple agents.
Trying to remember because they're not double. Yeah, I don't know. But it is a great plan they had to make sure that everybody was on the same side.
Yes, and now we also find out that young lady who we saw being honored earlier on that news broadcast is actually a spy.
Yes.
So we know that the Zeon people have inside agents inside the Nazi movement. So, we don't know how many they have, but it's kind of good to know that we have an in there.
Yeah.
And all is not lost.
Yeah. So that's actress Valora Noland playing Daris. Born 1941, and she was also seen around this time in Wagon Train, The Donna Reed Show, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and Mannix.
Good resume.
Yeah.
Good resume. I wonder if any of the actors... This show has a lot of guest stars and extras. There's a lot of extra people that are floating around, guards and people in rooms and things like that were wearing Nazi uniforms. I wonder if any of them really had trouble doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, sure, some of them had relatives who were in the war, or at least knew people who were in the war.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if any of them had taken any issue with it. And, you know, of course, you know, you have work and you're doing work and you have to be professional. But, you know, on the inside, you know, you're wearing a swastika on your arm. You got maybe a tough thing to work through, be professional with.
Yeah. So now we're getting, I guess, the reveal of Spock as an alien, and also that John Gill is an alien, quote unquote, an alien to them. Yeah,
that's kind of a shocker, huh? To them, that this guy who they know is the leader of this evil, murderous party is actually not from their planet at all. So they're assuming that he was sent there to destroy their society.
Yeah.
So Kirk quickly tries to convince them that that's not the case, and I guess they kind of buy into it.
Yeah, and we also learn that the Fuhrer is in a maximum security type situation of protection.
Yeah, and they'll never be able to get to him. So he's deep within the compound, and they're going to try to hatch some sort of a plan to reach him because, as they said earlier, the Enterprise won't be in orbit for, I think Spock said an hour, or Kirk said an hour, which doesn't seem like that long of a time.
Yeah.
You think they just hang around for an hour, get in contact with the ship, do that old area stun, and be done with it. Once again, yeah. The area stun. Mm-hmm. Actually, you know what would have been cool if they'd have flown out, grabbed a couple of Gorn, and dropped them on the planet there.
Oh, goodness. So there's going to be a broadcast. The Fuhrer's going to, do one of his weekly broadcasts?
Yeah, this one is supposed to be a big major speech. So a lot of dignitaries and high-ranking officials are going in. We actually saw some people walking in with some important-looking coats on, and they're going to use the old film crew trick.
Yeah, and the the theory that if you act like you belong somewhere, people will think that you belong there.
That totally works.
Yeah,
totally works. So they just kind of barge right in because they have lights and a little handheld Super 8 looking camera there.
And they also have Darius with them, who still has access.
Oh yeah, she's got clout, and I think she was supposed to be there anyway. She said she was going to be there for the big speech, and they were going to parade her around as a model citizen.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. It's a viable ruse that she'd have some sort of a film crew following her around to document her appearance there. Although she doesn't seem to be doing much but smiling for the camera.
And what kind of shot would Kirk be getting there? Unless he's got like some wacky lens.
He's getting the nostril shot.
Yeah, it had to be like, just her right nostril there.
Yeah, he's right in her face. I love how they keep pointing the lights into the room.
Yeah.
And and I love how they put the Nazi label on everything. So there's a Nazi camera, Nazi lights.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. So we're getting the lay of the land. And the Fuhrer himself is behind some sort of a curtain. He doesn't actually come out.
Yeah, he's in a broadcast booth.
That's kind of fishy. So he doesn't actually stand up at the podium. We watch him on a screen, even though he's just behind a pane of glass in the next room over.
Yeah. So this episode was written by John Meredith Lucas, who actually wrote 4 episodes of the series, directed 2 for a total of 6. And he was also the only writer to also direct an episode that he wrote. And he previously wrote The Changeling, and he was a producer for most of the 2nd season.
Oh.
But the interesting thing is, there was another Nazi-themed script that they were developing prior to Patterns of Force called Tomorrow the Universe by Paul Schneider. So it's interesting that there were 2 sort of Nazi-themed scripts, and I guess this is the one that they decided to go with.
I think they made a pretty good choice. This is a very interesting episode. So we're in a coat closet now, by the way. And Spock has gotten the communicator to work, and he's attempting to contact the Enterprise. And he actually does get them.
Yeah.
thankfully enough, he gets Uhura on the horn. And I think this is a very interesting sequence of events here, because we're going to learn that the ship's computers are capable of synthesizing a uniform from a specific time period with specific military rank insignia on it. For Dr. McCoy. So Kirk orders the computer to create a colonel's uniform so that McCoy will be a very high-ranking individual.
Yeah.
Right. So he'll be right up there with that the envoy emissary guy, and so that they'll I don't know what his game plan is, but he does have to wind up improvising here. But what the ruse is supposed to do is he wants to use McCoy to analyze the state of John Gill. So he needs some way to disguise McCoy that they may be able to get him into that broadcast room.
Yeah, which is a pretty seems like it would be a tough sell.
You would think. I don't know if anybody's allowed to go in there except for that Malicos guy who's the second in command, right?
Yeah, and you'd think that they would have some kind of private physician, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So you would wonder why Kirk would think they could get McCoy in there, but I'm sure they would probably wind up resorting to more nerve pinches.
Yeah. So it's interesting that McCoy was beamed while he was putting his boots on, which leads me to believe that he wasn't on the transporter.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. I wonder if they direct beamed him from his quarters down there, because he was kind of like mid putting his boot on. And the hat is kind of mismatched as well.
Yeah.
But in come the guards, and we got the drop again for another commercial fade out. But Kirk is going to come up with a think on his feet moment where he says the colonel is drunk. And of course, we think that they buy it, but we find out later that he's not really buying. He's just letting them slide.
Yeah, but McCoy's doing a great job of it.
Yeah, he's kind of floundering around a little bit there, kind of, there, little half-assed salute there. It's great. So it's so weird to see them in other uniforms.
Yeah,
isn't it?
And Spock is suspicious because they didn't recognize him.
Yeah, they're wondering. Yeah, they're wondering why that guy wouldn't have recognized the two of them, especially after he watched them being tortured not long ago. Now, if you were one of these people in this room, you were watching this guy talk. I mean, obviously his mouth is not moving, and he's sitting there completely stone-faced. I mean, I know they put the microphone over where his mouth is to try to disguise it, but you can tell. If someone's face is partially obstructed, you can still tell when they're talking.
Yeah.
They still have their cheeks are still moving. You would be able to see his face contorting as he talked. But it seems like they're going to figure out that this is just a bunch of random sentences strung together into a speech.
Yeah. It's almost like they have a John Gill soundboard.
You wonder how many politicians today do that. There's a bunch of random nonsense sentences in a row.
It's like those magnets, that you can build. You can take phrases and put them together.
Yeah.
Let's play that game.
Yeah, I had some of those in my office once, and they're kind of on the side of my file cabinet. You just make different sentences out of it.
Yeah.
But they're using the opportunity here to dip back out of the room and see if they can. McCoy is assuming his preview diagnosis is that Gill is on some sort of a drug or heavily drugged. And we're not sure exactly what the game plan is, but now we're starting to assume that he's not a willing participant in this. He's had some sort of a persuasion put on him. And here we got the film crew thing again. And, I understand how the nerve pinch knocks this one guy out, but the other guy seems to go out pretty quick with just a little arm wrapped around his neck there.
Yeah, they must have found the exact pressure point.
Yeah, really. And he went down real quick without much of a fight at all. So now Malicos, the second in command guy here, sort of takes over, the podium, and we're starting to see that maybe this guy is the one that's pulling the strings here. Yeah, death to Xeon. They're going to be the official rule has been declared, and they're going to be eradicating all of the Xeon people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so we've got now John Gill is McCoy's doing his diagnosis, getting to the bottom of what's going on, and they're going to give him a stimulant.
Yeah, they're going to try to wake him up a little bit here. And, McCoy always has that little bag of stuff.
Yeah.
There's nothing McCoy doesn't have in his bag. So apparently it's not doing much, though. And the sedation that he's under is extremely heavy.
Yeah. So John Gill is played by David Bryan, who, not the keyboard player from Bon Jovi, died in 1993 at the age of 78. And he had a relationship with Roddenberry through a show that Roddenberry wrote for Mr. District Attorney, which was a show that Bryan starred on.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see how Roddenberry sort of went back to people he had worked with previously and sort of found ways to work them in.
Yep, it's who you know, man. It's who you know. And I love how Kirk is going to order Spock to do a mind meld, but he calls it a mind probe.
Yeah.
So Spock is how long has it been since we've seen a mind meld? Oof. It's been a while.
Yeah, we saw one after Devil in the Dark, didn't we?
Yeah, but Nomad. He mind melded with Nomad.
Was that after Devil in the Dark?
Mm-hmm.
But then he also melded with a humanoid.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when that was. It was sometime between.
Oh, the one with the undercover Romulan or the undercover Klingon. Was it the?
Oh yeah.
Tribbles episode.
Yep, Tribbles.
Yeah,
a mind meld there, right? Very cool. So it hasn't been that long, I guess. My memory is a little bit hazy there, but
yeah, it took us a while to get there, but
yeah, we got there.
Yeah. Hey,
yeah, we're getting old.
So it's neat because Spock is melding with a guy who's not really fully conscious.
No, and what he does is very strange. So is this another Vulcan power that we've seen? He's created a condition, I guess what he's calling. He's created a condition with Gil where he can't speak, but he can answer questions.
Yeah, it's like he unlocked that part of his mind or something.
Yeah.
It's a plot convenience.
Sure.
It's a power that wasn't really used again.
No, but interesting that he can do that, I guess.
Yeah, but did he ever really have another instance to do it?
I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but
it's kind of like in Batman 66 when they always had something. The thing they needed was on the utility belt.
The shark repellent.
Or yeah.
That makes sense because you have to create some fantastic way to get out of every situation. But we're finally getting the reveal that Gil actually did inadvertently inflict the Nazi curse on this society, and he says that they needed some sort of order, and that the Nazi state was the most efficient state that Earth ever knew.
Yeah, which kind of gets Kirk a little angry because he says, what the Nazis, are capable of. So
yeah,
it's almost playing with a very, very ignitable fluid near flames.
Yeah. And Spock even agreed with Gil, though.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit, and it's strange that he would say that it was the most efficient state Earth ever knew. But I mean, isn't present Star Trek Day more efficient than that?
Yeah,
since they no longer have war and they're not pursuing material wealth and you pretty much have world peace and space exploration.
Yeah, and that might be where the history teacher might have gotten tied up with, where he was too busy looking at the past that he couldn't see how great the present was.
No, that's possible. Yeah, isn't comedian Louis C.K. always joking about that too?
Oh yeah.
How great
we've got everything, but nobody's happy.
Yeah.
So Gil is pretty much stimulated out.
Yeah, he's pretty much done at this point.
But I like how Kirk sort of demanded McCoy, sort of shoot him up again.
Yeah, and it's funny that when McCoy always goes back at him, at least he's at least tells him that he won't do it because it'll more than likely kill him. Because you've got, I guess, a conflict of uppers and downers in his system at the same time, right? Which is not exactly the best thing to do.
Yeah, poor Gil's, heart and central nervous system just couldn't handle it.
Yeah. So at least they come up with this plan on the fly to take Spock, the alien who is trying to kill the Führer, out to face Melicon instead of just executing him right there on the spot. So they bought Spock a little bit of time. But funny that they leave the rest of them in there.
Yeah,
with the
all
Führer,
very dubious.
Right? Yeah, wouldn't they say, all right, get out of there, come on.
And then you'd also have to wonder how Spock single-handedly got in there.
Yeah, really.
Past two guards.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a feat. But then again, they don't really know. He isn't obviously an alien, so maybe he's got some special abilities that they're unaware of. But Melicon starts to insult Spock, actually.
Yeah.
Instead of realizing what he's got, he starts to point out that he's got a what is it, a devilish appearance or a sadistic eyes or something of that nature.
Yes.
Yeah. So Kirk goes against McCoy's wishes and gives Gil another stimulant, but it doesn't seem to be doing much at this point.
Yeah, and Kirk's really pleading with him here that he's the only one that can make things right.
Yeah, the poor guy. That's a great acting job.
Oh, it's
by
great.
Gil.
Yeah.
I mean, he just kind of sits there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really buy the fact that he's out of it.
Mm-hmm. And this is also really where they start hammering home the importance of the non-interference directive. And for viewers, it really drives it home too. And for me, at least, it sells what Starfleet's intentions are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this shows you the extreme.
Yeah.
Condition.
Which is the best way to when you're going to give an example of something. It's
you carry it out to its most ridiculous end, right? And I guess they tried to do that a little bit with a piece of the action, but that was more of a comedic way of doing things. I mean, it was violent, and a negative situation, but this is farther out to the extreme.
Yeah. And there was him saying that Spock had a low forehead that indicated stupidity.
Yeah, and Spock's like,
So here now is Gil out of the, the piped in audio, and he's telling it like it is.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that Malicos is. He's trying to tell the people, all right, get out of here. He's tired. He needs to rest. Don't pay any attention to him. But you would think that, this guy is their beloved leader. So the minute he pops on the screen, they would be riveted to it. Why would they listen to what he said?
Yeah.
Or Melicon? Why would they follow his, mandate and leave when this guy's obviously got something to say? So they didn't actually leave, which is great. They're kind of listening to what Gil says, and they're a little bit taken aback by it because he's taking back the declaration of war and recalling the troops. So the war that's just starting out has just ended, thankfully.
Yeah.
And he's calling Melicon out as a traitor, which is it's going to be the final thing that sets Melicon off. Yeah,
but unfortunately he's able to grab a machine gun, and boom, Kirk's lucky he didn't get hit there.
Now, wouldn't you? Yeah, absolutely. Now, wouldn't you think if that guy just shot the president, wouldn't the guards immediately shoot him?
Yeah.
That just seems. Well, I guess they had to give the heroic moment to Isaac, right?
Yeah.
So he gets the payback, but unfortunately, poor old Gil, he didn't make it.
Yeah, and Melicon sold the shot well as well.
Oh, sure.
Skip Homier, I believe his name was.
I have no idea to pronounce that.
He played his first role was playing a German youth.
Oh, wow.
For Tomorrow the World, and he had over 100 appearances on TV during his career.
Wow, that's a great resume.
Yeah.
Great resume.
And Gil is dead.
Yep.
But he righted things before moving on, which
just in time.
Yeah.
Just in time. And this is another one of those episodes that has a rather abrupt ending.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't really get a full resolution here. We get the death of Gil and the, hopefully the end of this war, but we don't know for sure, how it all pans out, because you would think there's plenty of underlings, generals and colonels in that army that would continue.
Oh, yeah. And
maybe they didn't hear the orders.
Yeah. But then also you'd have maybe the conspiracy theories that, start floating around of what parts of Gil's speeches were staged, and if his final speech is genuine.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, this state of society could continue for a very long time, and it seems very strange that they would just up and leave at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's really... It's a tough spot, because what can they really do?
I guess you need the Starfleet cleanup crew to come in. Put right what once went wrong.
Yeah, well, isn't that like Quantum Leap?
Yeah, it is. Or Kirk could just hit that jettison pod button. It's just sitting there.
Yeah.
He could send the pod down.
So now we have Kirk's, final thought.
Yeah, this is the Jerry Springer moment.
Yeah. But here they are. They're really driving home the point of this episode, and really why the non-interference directive is so important.
Yeah, with a little bit of a Spock McCoy comedy there, but they're pretty much offering the Star Trek spin on, what Nazi Germany was, what caused it, and
yeah,
and Spock is taking the opportunity to point out how many these Earth dictators there were.
Yeah, looking for absolute power.
Yeah, so a little bit more arguing back and forth. You get our weekly comic moment between the two of them.
Yeah, where Kirk says, we've already been through one civil war. Let's not start another.
Yep. And Chekhov gets the order to take them out at Warp 2, not Sulu.
Yeah, yeah.
But that looks like the back of Sulu's head to me.
Yeah.
A great remastered shot there of the Enterprise flying away.
Oh, totally. Totally.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I guess our essential vote time is here?
Yeah, I'll go if you want.
I'm sure, yeah.
So I think if you couple in the historical significance to Kirk and Spock of John Gill, as minor as it is, and the real sort of demonstration of why Starfleet has the non-interference / prime directive, for me, that makes this an essential episode.
Interesting. Well, I was on the fence. I wasn't sure which way I was going to go. But I think that this is going to be one that we may disagree on.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Gil is enough. We don't really get to know him at all. I mean, we kind of just get Kirk saying that, he was somebody I learned from in the academy, but we don't really get a lot of information on him other than that. He's pretty much comatose the entire episode, so I don't know if it's necessarily something that makes it essential for me. I mean, I might have to think about it a little bit more, but you kind of get that little bit of Spock special power thing, but he never uses that again. I mean, it may be something that gets close to tipping the scales, but I'm not quite sure. So I'm probably going to have to go non-essential.
Really, even one. with how heavily they hammer home the non-interference directive.
No. I mean, I think we know what it is by now. I mean, we've been introduced to it a couple times already. I think we know what it is and what it means. So, I'm not sure if that's enough to kick it over the edge for me. But
fair enough. We're allowed to split on occasion.
Yeah, maybe I'll also give this one maybe an honorable mention type scenario again, where if you have some extra time and you want to see another example of an interesting Trek episode, take a look at this one.
Mm-hmm. And as always, we'd love to know what you think, and you can interact with us over on our Facebook page, which you can find at the Tricorder Transmissions, or on Twitter at @TTT_pod, or on the web at thetricordertransmissions.com.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
The watchword for Star Trek was always budget, budget, budget. Wherever we could, we would try to save money on set dressing and construction. If we could avoid building a set by using a leftover set from another production or redress a real building, we would save money that could then be applied elsewhere in the show. If you ever visit the Paramount Studio lot in Los Angeles, you might recognize the Ecosian Nazi headquarters as the producer's building, and yet another Ecosian structure as the director's building. With our tight budgets, the cost of draping a few swastikas over the existing buildings proved to be significantly less than the cost of building a set from scratch. There's a legend, possibly based in fact, that during World War II, the Italians were very fond of Mussolini when he came to power as a fascist because he made the trains run on time. They were Germans who adored Hitler at first for bringing order to their chaotic government and life. In Patterns of Force, John Gill was attempting to do the same on the planet Ecos. The problem is that it's impossible to extract elements of good from evil totalitarianism. Evil, given a foothold, even in the name of good, will eventually take over. No matter how much you revise history, the lessons don't change.